Hello, my name is Matt with Stalwart and Wise Real Estate Group, and I wanted to show you the process that I go through before we go out to a house to make sure everything looks good on paper. So, the client we're looking for has a budget of about $400,000 or less, and they are interested in having chickens in the future. So, with those two in mind, what we want to do is look at the house from the perspective that, um, hey, if we buy this house at 384,000, it is a house that was built in 1963. So, what are some of the nuances that are associated with buying a house like this? So, the first thing I want to do is I want to take a look at it from a map view. And I know this area well, but still, what I like to do is go, hey, we're closer to some country sections. Not that this is in a country section. You can see it's in a very, it's not really, I guess this is more suburban down through here, but this is on the outskirts of a town called Kannapolis. And I'm just looking for little indicators of what's going on. Specifically, we've been looking at more houses that have been out in more rural areas, and we want to make sure we are not next to a chicken farm because they have also expressed disinterest in that. So, what I do is I say, hey, we are right off a road. This is not a super busy road, but it does have good traffic through it. And in addition to that, this is I'm pretty sure this is a school. This is Cabarrus County in particular, and so I forget the name of the school here. We could look into that later, but you see all the school buses, and this would be important for the client to know if they had a property here. So we then kind of zoom in a little bit more. We go, okay, it has about, even before we start looking at whether the price is good or not, that's in the later stages. We want to know, is it worth it to go out here and see this house based on their needs? So we know the agent's the owner here. We're looking at it kind of from what the agent said. The HVAC system, which is the heating and the cooling system, has been inspected. It has a new thermostat, and there are broken window sills that are being replaced. So that's not super huge. This is all the fun stuff about the house. Like, hey, this is a beautifully renovated brick ranch. That's the best house in the whole wide world. We see that it has had extensive updates, including the crawl space and plumbing, which is good on a 1963 house. A lot of times in these, you have like cast iron and materials that are nice to have updated in 2025. So the next place we want to go is we want to look at the disclosures, and we are particularly interested in the property disclosure here that gives us an indication on how old the roof might be and some other things. We have the floor plan, which that's useful a little bit later stages. We also know that since it's 67, anything before 1978, you definitely want to have a lead-based paint or disclosure form for this. And everything in North Carolina is going to have a mineral oil gas form. So let's take a look at the property disclosure. So if this house is listed at 384 and we have an old roof, which is unknown at this point, what the age of it is, then obviously that is going to be a point that you want the inspector to look at. Because if this house, for example, if the roof costs between $10,000 and $15,000 for this particular type of house to get it back up to date, and it's at the end of its life, then I would tell my client here, hey, you need to budget for $10,000 to $15,000 maybe in the next 5, 10, 15 years, depending on how old the roof is. There's two types of roofs typically. You have a 3-tab composition and architectural shingle. Sometimes you see metal roofs around here, but that's more the exception than not. So on a 3-tab shingle, typically you're looking at between 15 to 20 years. There's some that could be up to 25. In North Carolina, in this area, I would take away 5 because we do get a little bit of hail, and summers are hot. We get the heat beating down on them, and there's a number of different variables that could shorten the life of a roof potentially. But another thing that we would look at on an architectural shingle is those are typically rated a little bit higher. Um, More often than not, I see them for 30-ish years. It could be 35, it could be 50 years. But I would say, hey, if it's architectural, you have probably around 30 years. Now, I'm not an inspector, so I can't go through and say, hey, you need to fix this, you need to fix this. But it does give us a good thing to say, hey, if we're spending 384, even if we get it down a little bit, and you have to put a roof on it in the future or in the immediate future, then is 384 plus another 15 grand worth it for this house? Now, we've looked at that. We want to look at the age of the HVAC system. So we're going to go down here, and it looks like it has a fuel source for the system of electric, and it was redone in 2024. Typically, the age range on those is between 15 and 25 years. It just depends. There's no guarantee that something's going to last. So you give age ranges on it. And then another thing I like to look for is sometimes they have the age of the hot water heater in here, which I'm not seeing now. So they did add some beams. It's gonna, we need to look out for that. They removed a wall, but they did pull the permit. So that's something we would check on. The cost of window sills, I guess, seals. So it could be that some are vapor locked. The agent would know that typically in this market. So they're probably saying, hey, we want to go ahead and get in front of this and take care of the windows because we know that could be a large ticket item. So those are right now, if I'm going out to this property, the two things that I want to know is I go, hey, we know the roof is newer. We need to do a quick visual on that, but then we want to check out the HVAC system and the hot water heater. Hot water heaters, 12 to 15 years is kind of the lifespan of those. That's people could debate this point, but I say in general, you can just expect that. So around here, if you're putting in a tank water heater, the water heater that has a tank, then you're probably looking around $2,000 to $4,000, depending on who you have do it. If you're doing tankless, I would add another $1,000, so $3,000 to $5,000, depending on where you put it. Ideally, it's probably going to be closer to the 3 or 4 grand range, but if you're thinking slightly conservatively on this, then that's going to compensate for a little bit of margin for error. Obviously, you can't say, hey, we need a tankless water heater. That's a value of 10 grand that you need to give us. It just doesn't work like that. But so the next step is to say, hey, is this within an HOA? Because we're particularly interested in chickens. And the answer here is no. However, we are within, let's see, are we within city zoning here? We need to double check that. So it's residential. I'm not seeing this right off the bat, but we are in Cabarrus County. I don't think we are zoned for also being in the city right here. I need to double check that just to verify it. But if it's not, then the likelihood of chickens go up. If it's in a neighborhood, then they could have restrictions against animals, and we would want to obviously double check that. And then another spot that we would check is we want to check if there's any deeded restrictions to say, hey, you can only have cats here, a cat and a dog or something like that. I've seen that before. So hopefully this gives you a good overview of, before we even start, I'm going to give this information to the client, and then they're going to decide, okay, there's enough of a question of whether or not we should go out to it, and then we go view it. Now, if it came back and the roof was old, the hot water system was old, and it said no chickens, then this would be a non-starter for them, and it saves them time. It saves me time driving out there. But this is kind of the preliminary look at a house that we're going to do just in general when you're working with us. So if that could be useful, reach out to us, send us a message, or ask us any questions you want. If you want me to do a little property analysis for you, I'm happy to do that, and I'm happy to record it and send you a video as well. So hope you have a great day, and I hope you take care of yourself. Bye-bye.